All right, so we're going to make an apple pie. That's our project. The questions are, how long will the project take? Are there any steps that we can delay at all throughout the process, or does everything have to happen one thing straight after another with no float time at all? So let's put down some of the activities that happen when you're making an apple pie. First thing that comes to mind, you're going to need to get the butter out and soften it up a bit so you're able to make some pastry for your apple pie. So I'm going to write down soften butter. That might take, what do you think, 30 minutes? So that's our time. What else are we going to need to do? Well, once we've softened the butter, we're going to need to actually make the pastry, and you put the pastry in the fridge for maybe half an hour. So let's have make a pastry be another activity. That could take 8, 10, 12 minutes. Place pastry in the fridge. Now you might want to do that for a while. That just helps it to take the flour takes on the butter and everything better. So that's going to be a better piece of pastry for you, more workable. What else are we going to need to do? Oh, we need to preheat the oven. What are we going to put in this pie? It's an apple pie, so we're going to need to peel and chop the apples. And you don't just have apples, you have some cinnamon, some sugar, stuff like that. So let's add spices, sugar to chopped apples. I'll keep it simple. I think we'll just let them cook properly in the pie rather than pre-cooking the apples in any way. What are we going to put it in? Some sort of pie dish, so we need to prepare that. So let's have a baking dish. What else do we need to do? Once we've got our apple mix and our pastry, we need to put that all together to make a pie. So we've got to assemble the pie, and then of course we've got to bake the pie. And we're running out of room, so that's good. Assemble pie and bake the pie. So there's a whole bunch of activities that we need to do. We're going to have to write down how long each activity is going to take, and we'll see what the length of the entire project is, and also whether we can delay any activities if we want to. So that's our times that we're going to do. Let's label these activities as well. This can be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. Let's put down some times that these activities might take. Getting the oven preheated, that's probably a half-hour job. Peeling and chopping the apples, probably 10 minutes. Just adding a few spices in and mixing up with some sugar and so on. Could take you 5 minutes to sort out. Putting a bit of baking paper in a tray or a bit of oil in a baking dish is only a couple of minutes. Putting the pie together, that's going to be pretty quick. Let's call it 4 minutes, just so not everything's a nice multiple of 5. And of course, baking the pie. Baking the pie might be about 35 minutes. So we've got our timings on those activities, and we can draw up a network diagram to be able to describe what's going on there. First thing though, in order to draw up the network diagram, is to look and see if there's any immediate predecessors. So I'll write that down here. Predecessors, or some such thing. Softening the butter, there's nothing needs to be done before that. But making the pastry, we need to soften the butter first, and soften the butter is A. So A has to happen first before you can make the pastry. And before you can place the pastry in the fridge, the immediate predecessor is that you need to make the pastry. Of course, you need to soften the butter, but that's not an immediate predecessor. I just want the one right before it. Preheating the oven, nothing needs to come before that. Peeling and chopping the apples, nothing comes before that from my list. Adding the spices and the sugar to the chopped apples, where we need to have peeled and chopped them. Lining the baking dish, you can just do that without anything else having to be done before it. Assembling the pie, well, we're going to need to have our mix, we're going to need to have our pastry, and we're going to need to have our baking dish. So we basically need C, the pastry is all sorted, and F, the mix is all sorted, the filling, and also we need the baking dish if we want to assemble that pie. And then in order to bake the pie, we need to have preheated the oven, and we also need to have assembled the pie. Once we know the predecessors, we can draw up our network diagram. So if I can just move this over here a bit more room to draw a diagram. So there's A and D and E and G that all come straight off the starting process. And it doesn't matter which way I put those. So how about we start and have A run straight in like that. And A takes 30 minutes. The next one we want to do is preheat the oven. How about we just pop that up there for a tick? That's going to be D, and that takes 30 minutes. Another one that comes straight off the start is to peel and chop the apples. So let's just pop E there, which is 10 minutes. And finally line the baking dish. That will be G, which takes 2 minutes. So they're all straight off this starting point. Okay. B has a predecessor of A. So straight after A, we've got activity B. And activity B takes 12 minutes. Activity C is straight after B, and it takes 30 minutes. C, 30. Activity F comes straight after E. So where's E? Okay, so activity F is there, and activity F just takes 5 minutes. Moving down the list, activity H is after C, F, and G. So activity H is here. Activity H takes 4 minutes, and it's after C, it's after F, and it's after G. And then bake the pie is after D and H. So D needs to come over here. And our final activity, which is bake the pie, takes 35 minutes. And we're at the finish. So let's just make sure that we can see this entire diagram now. That's our network diagram. Probably write that D30 a little bit more neatly here. Activity D takes 30, and maybe this G takes 2 minutes. Just put it down here. But look, that's all just tidying up. We're going to do some forward scanning and backward scanning to tell whether or how long the project will take, and also if there's any particular activities that we can delay without delaying the whole project. So I'm going to draw in for G, E, A and D. I'm going to draw these 4 boxes. That's for D, that's for A, that's for E, and that's for G, the starting ones. And basically these can all start, if they like, at 0. You can start doing any of them straight away if you want to. All right, so as we go through, we're going to have an earlier start time on the left and a later start time on the right of each of these boxes. And we'll work out how long the project takes and also whether there's any float times for any of the activities. So we begin. Let's go along this main track down here for a start, where a lot of the activities happen. You can start A at 0, and it takes 30 minutes. So the earliest you can start activity B, which is making the pastry, is after 30 minutes. You can't start making the pastry until activity A, which is softening the butter, has happened. So we've softened the butter, 30 minutes, now we can start making the pastry. That takes 12 minutes. So the earliest that we can actually put it in the fridge is after 42 minutes. Now let's have a look along E here. We start at 0 for E, and it takes 10 minutes to peel and chop the apples. So the earliest we can actually then add the spices and the sugar and stuff to the apples is after 10 minutes. Now what about H? What's the earliest we can start that activity? H, remember, is assembling the pie. After G, that would only take 2 minutes. Can I start assembling the pie after 2 minutes? No. After E and F of 5 minutes, that would be 10 plus 5, that would be 15. Is that long enough before I can start to assemble the pie? Well, no, because I have to do all these prior activities. Everything prior to H has to happen before I can do H, which is to assemble the pie. So clearly, this longest one, 30, 42 plus 30, it's going to be 72 minutes. 72 minutes before I can assemble the pie. Okay, assembling the pie takes 4 minutes, so that's 76 minutes, 72 plus the 4 minutes. I know that I could do D, which is preheat the oven in 30 minutes, but I need to have done all these other things here first before I can bake the pie. And then add on your 35 minutes, and that's 111 minutes that the project is going to take. So there, we've answered one question. The project will take 111 minutes. But what is the critical path? And are there any activities that we can delay without delaying the whole project? Well, if we come back here the 35 minutes that it took to bake the pie, the latest we can start putting the pie in the oven is at 76 minutes. That's the latest we can put it in and still end up at the 111 minute mark. What's the latest we can start assembling the pie? At 72, because it takes 4 minutes to assemble it, and we need to do that in order to get to the end without delaying the whole thing. Now let's go down this track here. G, which is lining the baking dish, only takes 2 minutes. So at the 72 minute mark, we need a lined baking dish, but it only takes 2 minutes to do it. So what's the latest time that we could line that baking dish? Well, the answer is we could wait until the 70 minute mark, and then we could do 2 minutes worth of lining and we'd be right to go, and it's not going to delay the process. What about here? This takes 5 minutes, number F, which is adding the spices and the sugar. So how long can we wait until we actually start doing that? 5 minutes before here. So what's 72 minus 5? 67. So at the 67 mark, we could still get away with doing that, mixing that stuff up, and it's not going to delay the rest of the process. This takes 10 minutes to do E, which is peel and chop the apples. So you could actually wait until the 57 minute mark before you began that if you wanted, and it wouldn't delay everything else. This takes 30 minutes, so we'd have to do that at the 42 minute mark. We'd have to do that at the 30 minute mark, and we'd have to start straight away, or we're going to delay the process if we delay any of these guys here. 76, that only takes 30 minutes preheating the oven. So at the 46 minute mark, that's the latest time you could start that activity. You're better off putting it on at the start, but if you wait till the 46 minute and put it on, it'll take 30 minutes to heat up and it'll be ready for the time when you're going to cook. If you can see any of the boxes that have the same numbers in them, that's the critical path. There's no float times there. There's no room to delay anything. So the critical path is identified as A, B, C, H, I. That path is determining the length of the project. That's the longest time in the project. That's 111 minutes. Now let's have a look at what some of the earliest starting times, the latest starting times, and the float times are in table form. So for softening the butter, the earliest I can start it is at 0. The latest I can start it at 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. There's no float time. Making the pastry is the same. It's got to be started at the 30 minute mark. The latest you can start it is then. The difference is 0. Placing the pastry in the fridge, the 42 minute mark, 42, 0. All right. Preheating the oven, the earliest I can start that is at 0. The latest I can start that is at 46. So 46 minus 0 is 46. There's a 46 minute time in there that I have where I could start it at any point, and it's all good. I'm not going to delay the whole project. Peeling and chopping the apples is along E there. So its earliest start time is 0. Its latest start time is 57. So there's a float time of 57. I've got plenty of time to delay that one if I need to. Adding the spices, earliest start time is 10. Latest start time is 67. So once again, there's a 57 minute float time. Lining the baking tray, that's G, 0, 70, the difference is 70. So there's a 70-minute float time. Assembling the pie is 72, 72, 0, and baking the pie is 76, 76, 0. So there's a 0 float time for that one. So you can see the different activities where it's 0. These ones here are going to be along your critical path. Whoops. These ones are going to be along your critical path. And the other activities here, they're your float times where there's a bit of adjustment can be made to when you start them or not.